What if part of your garden could do more than simply make your backyard look beautiful? What if some of those green leaves, roots, and herbs could also become ingredients for teas, meals, and simple daily habits that support a healthier lifestyle? And the surprising part is this: you don't need a huge garden to grow them. Some can live happily in a small pot beside a sunny window. Others will grow so quickly that your biggest problem may actually be keeping them under control. Today, we're looking at 10 herbal plants that are easy to grow at home and may support digestion, appetite control, or other parts of healthy weight management. But there's something important to understand before we begin. None of these plants is a magic fat burner. Your garden can't replace a healthy diet or regular movement. What these herbs can do is make healthy habits easier. And when you grow the ingredients yourself, you're much more likely to actually use them. So let's start with one of the easiest plants on this list. Number 10, ginger. You may have thrown a piece of ginger into a cup of tea or used it in cooking without ever thinking about growing it. But ginger is surprisingly easy to start at home. Take a fresh, healthy piece of ginger root with several small buds or eyes. Place it in loose, well-draining soil, keep it warm, and give it moisture without leaving the soil soaking wet. Before long, those little buds can begin producing shoots. And underneath the soil, something much more interesting is happening. The plant is developing a new rhizome that you can eventually harvest. Ginger is especially interesting when it comes to weight management because research has investigated its possible effects on metabolism, appetite, inflammation, and body composition. Some reviews have found modest benefits in certain measures, although the evidence is not strong enough to call ginger a weight loss cure. That makes ginger a great garden plant for a simple reason. You can grow something useful from a piece of food you already have in your kitchen. Number 9, turmeric. If you have a warm, bright spot in your home, turmeric can turn that space into a miniature tropical garden. Like ginger, turmeric grows from a rhizome. Plant a healthy piece beneath loose soil. Keep it warm and consistently moist, and eventually you'll see broad green leaves emerge. The underground rhizome is the part most people know. It's packed with curcumin, the compound responsible for turmeric's famous golden color. Research has explored curcumin for inflammation and metabolic health, but once again, it's important not to confuse promising research with a guaranteed weight loss effect. The real advantage here is practical. Instead of buying a tiny packet of dried turmeric every time you cook, you can grow the plant yourself and have fresh rhizomes available when they're ready. And watching those first leaves appear from a seemingly lifeless piece of root, that's half the fun of growing it. Number 8, fenugreek. This one is particularly interesting because it doesn't require much space. Fenugreek can be grown in a small container, and the seeds germinate relatively quickly. Give it sunlight, reasonable moisture, and a little patience, and you'll soon have fresh green leaves. Fenugreek contains soluble fiber, which is one reason researchers have investigated its potential effects on appetite and blood sugar. But here's the important distinction. Eating fenugreek isn't going to suddenly switch off hunger. Instead, it can become part of meals and traditional preparations that make your diet more satisfying. And because it grows quickly, fenugreek is one of those plants where you don't have to wait forever for a result. Plant it today, and you could soon be looking at a little green patch of your own. Number 7, mint. If you've ever planted mint directly in the ground, you probably already know the problem. Mint doesn't exactly ask permission. It spreads, and spreads, and spreads. That's why growing it in a container is often the smarter choice. Give it enough moisture and light, and it can produce fresh leaves again and again. Mint is especially useful for people trying to replace sugary drinks. Instead of reaching for a sweetened beverage, you can pick a few fresh leaves, add them to water, or make a simple herbal tea. The plant itself isn't a magical appetite suppressant, but replacing high-calorie drinks with unsweetened mint tea or infused water can be a very practical part of a healthier routine. Sometimes the best garden plants aren't the ones that directly burn fat. They're the ones that help you change what you consume every day. Number 6, rosemary. Rosemary looks almost too beautiful to be considered a practical kitchen plant. Its thin, needle-like leaves and woody stems can make a simple container look like a miniature Mediterranean garden, and it doesn't demand constant watering. In fact, rosemary generally prefers well-draining soil and can struggle when its roots stay wet for too long. That's good news for anyone who occasionally forgets to water. But rosemary also has an important place in the kitchen. Its strong flavor means you don't need much of it to make vegetables, chicken, potatoes, or other foods more interesting. And that's where the weight management connection becomes practical. Healthy food doesn't have to be boring. Fresh herbs can give simple meals enough flavor that you don't need to depend as heavily on heavy sauces or excessive amounts of oil. Your garden can literally help make healthier food taste better. Number 5. Oregano. Oregano is another herb that practically begs to be grown at home. Give it sunlight, reasonably dry soil, and a container with good drainage, and it can thrive. And there's a useful trick here. You don't need a giant oregano plant. A small pot can provide enough leaves to flavor plenty of meals. Oregano contains compounds such as carvacrol that have been studied for various biological effects. But rather than thinking of oregano as a fat-burning medicine, think about what it can replace. A handful of fresh oregano can make vegetables, salads, soups, beans, and other simple foods much more flavorful. And when healthy food tastes good, sticking with it becomes much easier. Number 4. Sage. Sage may not be the first herb people think about when they hear weight management. But this plant deserves a place in the garden. It enjoys sunlight and doesn't like sitting in constantly wet soil. Once established, its soft gray-green leaves can become a useful addition to cooking or herbal preparations. Sage has a long history of traditional use, and research has investigated its effects on areas including digestion and metabolic health. But again, don't think of it as a shortcut to losing weight. Think of it as another useful herb that can help you build a kitchen around fresh, flavorful ingredients. And there's something satisfying about walking outside, cutting a few leaves, and bringing them straight into the kitchen. Number 3. Thyme. If your garden space is tiny, pay attention to this one. Thyme doesn't need a large bed. It can grow beautifully in a small pot, and once established, it doesn't demand constant watering. That makes it ideal for beginners. Its tiny leaves carry a surprisingly strong flavor, which means a small amount can transform an otherwise plain meal. Roasted vegetables, soups, beans, chicken, even simple potatoes. A little fresh thyme can make everyday foods far more interesting. And that matters because sustainable weight management isn't about surviving on tasteless meals. It's about finding ways to enjoy food while making better choices. Number 2, lemon balm. Lemon balm may look like an ordinary leafy plant, but rub one of its leaves between your fingers and you'll understand the name immediately. It releases a fresh lemon-like fragrance, and it grows well in containers, making it another excellent choice for a small home garden. One of its simplest uses is as an herbal tea. For someone who regularly reaches for snacks in the evening, replacing one sugary drink or habitual snack with a warm, unsweetened herbal tea can become a useful routine. Lemon balm itself isn't a weight loss treatment, but the garden doesn't always have to give you a miracle. Sometimes it simply needs to give you a better option. And now we've reached number 1. Number 1, cinnamon. Here's the interesting one. Unlike most of the plants on this list, cinnamon doesn't come from a leafy herb. It comes from the inner bark of cinnamon trees. Growing a true cinnamon tree at home is possible in warm, frost-free conditions, although it requires considerably more space and patience than mint or thyme. So why put it at number 1? Because cinnamon has actually been studied in controlled trials for body weight and other measures of obesity. A meta-analysis of 21 randomized controlled trials involving 1,480 participants found that cinnamon supplementation was associated with modest reductions in body weight, BMI, and waist-to-hip ratio, although the researchers also noted substantial variation between studies and called for better long-term research. That's a much more interesting story than simply saying cinnamon burns fat. because the real lesson is that some herbs may offer small supportive effects, but they work best as part of a much bigger lifestyle. And that's really what this entire garden is about: ginger, turmeric, fenugreek, mint, rosemary, oregano, sage, thyme, lemon balm, and cinnamon. None of them can do the work for you, but together they can turn your garden into something far more useful than decoration. They can give you fresh ingredients, flavor without relying on heavy sauces, simple alternatives to sugary drinks, and a reason to spend more time preparing food at home. So if you're trying to build healthier habits, don't look at your garden as just a collection of pretty plants. Look at it as your own little ingredient cupboard, growing right outside your door. And sometimes the first step toward changing what you eat is simply growing something better to eat.